and so it started as a kind of joke. Others might fail to see the humor of it, but it filled Frank Wheeler with a secret, astringent delight as he discharged his lazy duties, walking around the office in a way that had lately become almost habitual with him, if not quite truly characteristic, since having been described by his wife as terrifically sexy. A slow, cat-like stride, proudly muscular, but expressing a sleepy disdain of tension or hurry. And the best part of the joke was what happened every afternoon at 5. Buttoned up and smiling among the Knox men, nodding goodnight as the elevator set him free, he would take a crosstown bus and a downtown bus to Bethune Street, where he'd mount 2 flights of slope-treaded, creaking stairs, open a white door so overlaid with many generations of soiled and blistered paint that its surface felt like the flesh of a toadstool, and let himself into a wide, clean room that smelled faintly of cigarettes and candle wax and tangerine peel and eau de cologne. And there a beautiful, disheveled girl would be waiting, a girl as totally unlike the wife of a Knox man as the apartment was unlike a Knox man's home. Instead of after-work cocktails, they would make after-work love, sometimes on the bed and sometimes on the floor. Sometimes it was 10 o'clock before they roused themselves and strolled into the gentle evening streets for dinner, and by then the Knox building could have been 1,000 miles away. By the end of the first year, the joke had worn thin, and the inability of others to see the humor of it impressive. "Oh, you mean your father?" they would say, and their eyes, as often as not, would then begin to film over with the rough people of earnest, obedient, unadventurous women. Before long, and particularly after the second year of his parents' death, he had stopped trying to explain that part of it, and begun to dwell instead on other comic aspects of the job. The absurd discrepancy between his own ideals and those of Knox business machines. The gulf between the amount of energy he was supposed to give the company and the amount he actually gave. I mean, the great advantage of a place like Knox is that you can sort of turn off your mind every morning at 9 and leave it off all day, and nobody knows the difference. More recently still, and particularly since moving to the country, he had taken to avoiding the whole topic whenever possible by replying to the question of what he did for a living, that he didn't do anything really, that he had the dullest job you could possibly imagine. On the Monday morning after the end of the Laurel Players, he walked into the Knox building like an automaton. The show windows were featuring a new display, bright cardboard images of thin, fashionable young women who grinned and pointed their pencils at emblazoned lists of product benefits. Speed, accuracy, control. And beyond them, across the deep carpeted expanse of the display floor, a generous sampling of the products themselves stood poised against the bench. Some of them, the simpler ones, were much like the machines that kindled his father's enthusiasm 20 years before, though the angular black designs of those days brought them modified to fit the blocking or sculptured boards and a new casing, which were the color of oyster. But there were others equipped to deal with facts of business and speeds more lickety-split than anything pure real can do. These, ready to burn, blink with electronic history, grew more and more imposing across the floor, until they culminated in the big, inscrutable components of the Knox 500 electronic computer, a machine which, according to the museum card display at its base, could perform the lifetime work of a man with a desk calculator in 30 minutes. But Frank moved past the display without a glance, and his actions on entering the lobby were absent-mindedly expert. He obeyed the pointed finger of the elevator starter without quite being aware of it, nor did he notice which of the 6 elevator operators it was who sleepily made him welcome. He almost never did, unless it happened to be one of the 2 whose presence could be faintly oppressive. the very old man whose knees were so sprung that painful-looking bulges pressed against the backs of his trousers, or the enormous boy whom some glandular disorder had afflicted with the high hips of a woman and the downy head and beardless face of an infant. Pressed well back in the polite bondage of the car, he heard the sliding door clamp shut and the safety gate go rattling after it. And as the car began to rise, he was surrounded by the dissonant conversations of his colleagues. He heard a deep, measured voice of the Great Plains, rich with distance and travel and the best accommodations. "Of course, we did hit a little bumpy weather coming into Chicago." Sound out in